You're tuned into the God Stories Radio Podcast. www.godstoriesradio.com.
And welcome, everyone, to God Stories Radio. This is session 23. I'm Fritz.
I'm Mike.
Mike, I'm just, as usual, I'm always fired up at the beginning of these shows because I know that someone out there is going to benefit from what we're doing tonight.
Absolutely. Yep.
So how's your week been, Mike?
I'm going to ask you, how was your week?
My week was awesome. You know, as I said in session 22, anytime you get around a couple of hundred brothers and motorcycles, things happen.
They do.
In positive ways.
They do.
Actually, glad that you asked that because one of my colleagues that I work with that manages a sister store loves bikes. I invited him out that night to check out the bikes. Really didn't think he would show up. He did. And I had to run Aubrey home because she was meeting a friend. So I had just left, and he called me. He goes, "Where are you?" And I said, "Well, I had just left." He goes, "I'm up here looking at the bikes." A guy got a hold of him there, and I thought it was Ken McDermott that ended up talking to him because he said he had, he was bald-headed and whatnot. Ended up inviting him to Real Men. That is pretty cool how that works out. Now, he didn't come to Real Men, but he said he's going to come this week.
Okay, cool.
So that's pretty cool how that works out.
Yeah, it is. All right.
But we've got a very special guest tonight. We've got Trish. How you doing, Trish?
Good. How are you?
Wonderful. I'm personally excited about having Trish here tonight because she has a pretty prestigious radio background as far as I'm concerned.
That's what I understand.
Number one show in Washington, D.C., and I'm going to let her elaborate on that, but just really excited to have you, Trish. Thanks for coming by to share your testimony with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
And without further ado, we're just going to let you have it. Just take off.
Okay. I don't know a whole lot about testimonies. I'm a pretty new Christian. I just got baptized, I guess, in 2011. I don't know. I'm just going to share my story, so to speak. Well, when I was younger, I guess I'll start with my thoughts on God. When I was 9 years old, my father passed away. And I didn't believe in God at the time, but I saw my dad really sick in the hospital, and I asked God, is he going to die? And God said, yes, he is. And I got really upset, and I said, if he dies, I'll never speak your name. I will spit when I hear your name. I will not raise my children to believe in you. I mean, I just cussed God out as a 9-year-old would do, if you could say that. When my father passed away, I just decided that was it. I wasn't going to believe in God anymore. And believe it or not, I started drinking and doing a lot of drugs and that kind of thing. I've been in recovery now for 25 years, and I still go to 12-step meetings. When I was 14, I dropped out of high school. And I had 3 months of 9th grade, and I always wanted to be in radio. When I was a little kid, you know, and people would say, what do you want to do when you grow up? I wanted to be in radio, because when I was little, it was like I always had a friend there that was the person on the radio.
Who was your hero growing up? Did you have one?
Not a specific person, but just whoever was on the radio. I used to call. I was one of those kids that used to call and talk to the DJ on the air, and they always talked to me when I was a kid. They were always my friend. I would sit in the closet and just listen to the radio, listen to the DJ on the radio, and I thought, that's what I want to do when I grow up. I want to be like that kid's friend. You know what I mean? When I got clean and sober, I had a sponsor. She said to me, what do you want to do with your life? And I said, well, you're going to laugh if I tell you. And she said, no, seriously, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be in radio. I want to be on the radio. And she said, okay, do you know how to go about that or what you do? And I had no idea. And she said, she had me go through each step. She's like, okay, this week I want you to go home and find out what you have to do to be on the radio. So I'm like, okay. So I went home and I called up the local DJ and I asked him, like, what did you do? And they advised me to go to community college. So then I reported back to my sponsor. They said I should go to community college and take radio, television, and film. So then she says, okay, well, find out if Montgomery Community College has a radio, television, and film program. Okay. So I went back, and every week she just led me through each thing. And I thought, wow, if this is God's will, then it's going to happen the way it's supposed to happen. So I went from, I had a GED and no high school, and now I'm trying to go to college to take radio, television, and film. And so I went and took the test. I did all these tests, and I scored so low that I had to take the pre-English, the pre-math. But I took it and I did it. And it was like classes that you take with no credits. And I did that. Then I took a production class, and I called the morning show producer one day. I'm sorry, not the morning show producer. I called the DJ on the air one day who happened to be the program director, but I didn't know he was the program director. I didn't know what a program director was. I had no idea that this person I was speaking to would be the person that would be the one that would do the hiring. But thank God I didn't know, so I wasn't intimidated because I had no idea who I was talking to. So I called up and I said I was doing a report, because I was doing a report for a paper for school. And somehow the receptionist thought that I worked for the Washington Post newspaper. And so she put me right through to the program director and set up an interview for me. So I went in and I thought, I'm so glad that this guy met with me and everything else. And he's like, so what paper do you work for? And I'm like, I don't work for a paper. I'm a college student. I don't know where he thinks I'm writing for the paper. He's like, oh, they told me that you worked for the Washington Post and this and that. And I said, oh, so you're not going to give me the interview? He said, I'll still give you the interview. And I said, okay. So I tape recorded the interview. And then when we were done with the interview, literally my hand was on the door to walk out of the studio. And he said, oh, by the way, if you're looking for a job in radio, this is who you would talk to. And he gave me this name. And so I'm like, okay, he wants me to talk to this guy. And he said, yeah, he's the assistant program director. And I'm like, okay, what if he doesn't want to hire me? He goes, I'm the program director. He's the assistant program director. He does what I tell him to do. So the next thing you know, I'm like 18 years old, high school dropout, and I'm working at a radio station. Like, I'm not on the air yet, but I'm working at a radio station, So I started out doing research, and I was doing research for a while. This girl that worked there, also in research, it was her little brother's birthday. I used to do Bart Simpson imitations, and so she said, do me a favor and call my little brother and do a Bart Simpson imitation and tell him happy birthday. So I said, okay. So I called him up, and I'm doing this Bart Simpson imitation. Well, the assistant program director walks by, and he hears this Bart Simpson voice. And he comes in, and he's like, who's doing that? Who was that? And we thought we were going to get in trouble because we weren't working, and we were playing on the phone. And he says, no, it's great. I want to get you in the studio. Can you do that again? Can you say this? Can you say that? So next thing you know, I'm being whisked out of the office into the studio, and I'm doing Bart Simpson imitations with this guy, the fat doctor, and they put us on the morning show. After they put us on the morning show, I start talking to this other guy there who's the director of the morning show, and he says to me, hey, if you're looking for a job, I have this position opening up, producer of the morning show. And I'm like, so who do I talk to get the job? Who do I submit my resume to? And he goes, I'm the director. That would be me. So, like 19 years old, and I just fell into this position, I remember going into the studio, and I ended up doing I did the morning show as producer, but then I also ended up on the air, that was my goal, was to be on the air. And one night I was in the studio and I was looking out over the what do you call the city?
The skyline?
Thank you. I was in the studio and I was looking over the Washington skyline, and I remember thinking, I have arrived. 19 years old, producing the morning show in a top 10 market, Washington, D.C., and this voice said to me, there's something more. There's something more I want you to do. And I'm like, what? And I think it was God. God was saying to me, there's something else that I want you to do. Now that I've given you your heart's desire, now you're going to do something to glorify me. And I was like, okay. And I saw myself in a robe, in a black robe. And I was like, a judge? Really? Really, God? I'm a high school dropout. Like, how does that happen? So,
kind of sounds like you, Mikey.
Oh, it sure does. Well, I wasn't a high school dropout, but I did 2 sessions of college, semesters last year, just as she said, the prerequisites, because I didn't make the testing that they gave, and then funding ended, so that was it. I was done.
Yeah. So Mike kind of bears witness with you on that.
So far.
I had to learn, just like I did to get into radio, I had to figure out, what does a person do? Because God told me I'm supposed to be a judge. So I had to go back and figure out, how does a judge become a judge? What do they have to do? And I found out that they have to go to law school, that most judges were previously lawyers. And so how do you have to become a lawyer? You have to go to law school. And how do you go to law school? No one in my family had ever been to college. My mom, I think, took a couple of night courses, but I don't come from a family where, everybody went to college and all of that. So I didn't understand. So I had to go and figure out, okay, what do I have to do to go to law school? I have to get a bachelor's degree. I have to get a 4-year degree. What do I do to get a 4-year degree? Well, I had started at community college. Now I need a 4-year degree, because after I go with the 4-year degree, then I have to go to law school. Then I have to become an attorney for about 10 years. Then I become a judge. That's the pattern, the path to get there. But I had to make all those connections because God just gave me this vision. I didn't know how to get there. And so I was like, okay, God, I'm going to humor this, and I'm going to run with it. And I applied for this scholarship. The next thing you know, I got a full scholarship to the University of Maryland. And, here I'm this high school dropout, 3 months in 9th grade, and I got a full scholarship. So I got out of radio, and I started going to school so that I could eventually go to law school and become a judge. And now I'm 2 classes away from my bachelor's degree. And then I'm supposed to sit for the law school admittance test, the LSAT. That's part of the pathway. So you have to sit for the law school admittance test. And I'm going to sit for that in June. And then working on getting a full scholarship to law school right now. So,
now, I heard that correctly? You said high school dropout and 3 months of 9th grade?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I heard that correctly. That's unreal.
It's unreal.
And a thought went through my mind that if God opened those doors for you in radio, look for doors to open as you continue to obey and go through law school.
I know, I keep saying, God, really? I mean, am I really going to be able to do this? And every time I question it, something more comes in my path. Like, for example, I met this woman a couple of days ago who's completely blind. She has a master's degree in social work, and the same people that paid for her graduate degree is who I'm looking to pay for my graduate degree. What are the odds of that?
It's not a coincidence.
So I'm really excited because so far, every time I think, like, I have a 3-year-old daughter at home. How am I going to go to law school? How am I going to sit for the law school admittance test when I have a 3-year-old at home? Who's going to watch her while I go take the courses? Because you have to take a prep course before you take the LSAT. God's like, I got this, you know, and I talked to a girlfriend, and she's like, one way or another, we'll work it out. Whatever needs to happen, we'll work it out. I'll watch your 3-year-old. You go take the course every Saturday, 4 to 5 Saturdays in a row. I'll watch your daughter. We'll work it out. Every time I think that I'm out of gas, I'm at the end of that path that I think I'm supposed to be on, God takes that, whatever that hurdle is, helps me over that hurdle each time. So one of the things that God put on my heart to talk about was something that I went through when I was saying that, like, I have a 3-year-old daughter. She's almost 4. It took me 4 pregnancies to get her, and she's my miracle baby girl. As the doctors say, I had 4 pregnancies with 0 live births. That's how they would state it. I have 4 pregnancies, 0 live births, because I had 3 miscarriages. The last one was the toughest. It was a blighted ovum pregnancy, which is equivalent to there's a house there, there's a food there, but no one's home. So the sac is there, the placenta's there, but there's no baby. So your stomach still grows like you're pregnant. Everything is like you're pregnant. So I was 3.5 months. They were trying to find a heartbeat, and they couldn't find a heartbeat. They showed me the sac, and they said, right there is where the baby should be, and the baby's not there. So you're not pregnant. You're pregnant, but you're not pregnant, which is, I know your parents always tell you either you're pregnant or you're not. It's one of those things. But I was pregnant and not pregnant at the same time.
So the sac that houses the fetus, I guess, still grows?
Yes.
As if it were there?
Yes, as if it were there.
So you're experiencing 9 months of pregnancy. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to wrap my head around that, and I just couldn't imagine what
crazy
how that would feel.
Well, here's the thing. This is kind of crazy. And before I came, I thought, what am I going to guard and not say? I don't want to say things because I know once you put things out there in the internet, it's there forever. But God told me, I will protect you. I will not forsake you. You be honest and you tell your story. And I will honor that, you know, he'll honor that. I will tell you that I was not pregnant. I was not married for 3 out of 4 of those pregnancies. I was not married. And I was not married when I was pregnant with this blighted ovum pregnancy. I actually got pregnant on Christmas Day. I got pregnant on Christmas Day with this blighted ovum pregnancy. And so when I was engaged, but I wasn't married. When we found out that I was pregnant, we were going to get married. But then it was a blighted ovum pregnancy. So I cried one night. I mean, I wept and wept and cried. And God told me, if you put me first, if you honor me and you put me first, I will give you a child. I will give you the desires of your heart. And you're going to have a baby girl. And I said, all right, God, if you do that, I'll name her Grace, because it'll be by your grace that you will grace me with her presence in this life, because I wanted nothing more than to be a mother. Nothing more. I told my husband, my fiancé at the time, okay, so do you want to get married May the 21st, or do you want to get married May the 15th? Because we're getting married. Because God told me that if we get married and we put God first, He's going to honor that, and He's going to give us that baby that we want, because we were both so devastated with this blighted ovum pregnancy. So we got married that May 21st, and I got pregnant, and it was very guarded pregnancy because I had had the 3 miscarriages already. I was on bed rest for 2 out of the 3 trimesters. So I was on bed rest, then not on bed rest, then back on bed rest. And this little baby girl was growing inside of me, and everything, you know, I was 40 years old having a baby, first off. So I had to go to the geneticists or whatever that do all the testing, and they had to do all this testing. And my husband is also older, and so it's not just a matter of me being older, and so the egg is older, but the sperm is older too. So they had to do more testing because we're both old farts having a baby. So the geneticist...
40 is not the new 30 when it comes to sperm count, I guess what you're saying.
No, they got to do all kinds. They put us through the ringer. They did all kinds of testing, and they said they called, and I remember sitting down, taking the call to tell us how things were, because that was one thing. They kept offering all these different tests while you're pregnant, and I finally got to a point where I said, look, if I have those tests, am I risking a miscarriage? Am I risking losing this baby? Yes, there's a small chance, but there is a chance that you're going to lose this baby. So are you testing me because you're going to have someone different at the delivery that would otherwise not be there? Or are you testing me because you want to give me the option to have an abortion? Or why are you testing me? I had to constantly ask that because I didn't want to risk losing this baby, no matter what. Mm-hmm. And I don't believe in abortion, so no matter what I had, that's what I was going to get. You know what I mean? And it's so funny because we had the ultrasound and we saw a leg. And so people were like, oh, your ultrasound, how did it go? How did it go? And I'm like, we saw her leg. She has a leg. And they're like, well, I hope she has 2. I'm like, I don't care. She's got a leg. You know, she's got a leg. I was so excited.
People don't realize what a big deal that is, though you're on the 4th go-around, so to speak.
Really?
Right.
It's a big deal.
Right.
It was a leg.
It was a big deal, right? Because remember the last pregnancy, we didn't see, that was the problem. We didn't see anything. Mm-hmm. So we saw a leg. That was exciting. Exactly.
What's amazing me throughout this whole testimony, what I've heard so far, is that you have had intimate communication with the Father.
Right.
Even at a young age of 18 or 17.
9. 9.
Oh, 9.
Yeah.
9 was the first time.
Yeah. I missed that part.
And I wasn't raised in a church either. That's part of it, is that I think that you hear God speak, and when you're raised in a church and you're raised in a religion, you think you know what God is supposed to sound like. So you second guess when you hear God speak. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does.
Oh, it makes perfect sense
Yes,
to
it
us.
does.
Because I wasn't raised in a church. So if I wasn't raised in a church and I hear a voice speaking to me and I'm not crazy, then what other voice is that? You know what I mean? Anyway, so for 9 months I was very guarded with this pregnancy. God had told me that I was going to have a baby girl, and so when they did the checking and it was a baby girl, I was like, okay, this is the one that's going to make it, because God told me I was going to have a baby girl. It's not a boy, it's a girl, just like He told me. So her middle name is Grace, because I told God, if you give me a baby, I'll be happy, but if you give me a baby and it's a girl, because God said, I'm going to give you a baby and it's going to be a girl. And I said, then I'll name her Grace so everyone will know. And so her middle name is Grace. And when she was born, she was perfect. She was, here we were old farts having a baby. I had had all those miscarriages, and and God led me through each step of it, each step. Like, I can tell you, the first time that I heard her heartbeat, was the same Friday that was the due date of the blighted ovum, that I had lost. So it was September, I remember. It was September, and the baby's due date was September 25th. And I went, and I remember praying that morning and saying, God, of all the days that I need to hear this baby's heartbeat, I need to hear this baby's heartbeat today. Because they said, you're going to come in and we might hear a heartbeat or we might not, because you're 9 weeks. So we might or we might not. And I told God, I need to hear that. I can't go through this again. Because I had already told my husband too, we're going to try to have this baby that God says I'm going to have, and this is the last try. I'm not trying anymore. I can't do this again. I can't do this again.
Was this the same day that he spoke to you about, if you do what I want you to do, that I'll give you a baby? Is this the same day?
No. That was the day that she was conceived.
Oh, okay. I was just trying to determine the significance of that particular day.
That particular day was, we were married. Well, God had already told me that I was going to have a baby and that it was going to be a girl and that he would honor that if I got married. So I went and got married. Then I got pregnant, and God honored that with the baby.
Gotcha.
But I went and I remember praying that morning that I heard Caitlin Grace's heartbeat for the first time, saying, God, this morning is a hard morning because this is the due date of the other baby. So today is going to be a big day, and, hopefully we'll hear the heartbeat. And and God told me, you're going to hear the heartbeat because I'm giving you this baby. And darn if we didn't hear the heartbeat that first day. And we were so excited because each step of the way was a little bit further than I had had the pregnancy before. Each time God brought me through a little bit further and a little bit further, And so when they did the tests, they did all these tests to see like how the baby was, and at one point they said, are you sitting down? And I said, yeah, I'm sitting down. And the geneticist said, I don't know how you managed to do this, but not only are you carrying a healthy baby, you are carrying the baby of a 21-year-old. I said, what do you mean? She said, the testing that we've done, your baby is that of a 21-year-old, not a 40-year-old, not a 40-year-old woman, and definitely not a 45-year-old man. Somehow this baby you're carrying is that of a 21-year-old. I don't know how else to explain that to you. And I said, it's a God thing. I don't know how else to explain that to you, but it's a God thing. God told me I'm going to have this baby. And so I had her at, because I was a high-risk pregnancy, because I had three previous miscarriages. I was over the age of 35. I had a head injury in 2001 that caused seizures, so I had seizures. Any one of these things made me a high-risk pregnancy. So I had seizures. I was on seizure medication while I was pregnant. So all odds were against me having this baby, I planned on having her at Winnie Palmer because I knew if something happened and I had a seizure or whatever, all the specialists would be there. Everybody would be there. When I had her, everything was perfect. She was 8 pounds and 3 ounces, which is like the national average of a normal baby. Like everything about her was like quote unquote normal all the way through. But it, like I said, that of a 21-year-old's baby would be. So,
hey, when God gives it to you, he adds bonus years to it.
Yeah, he does. He graces it for sure. So
one of the other things that I wanted to talk about was about something that's kind of hard for me to talk about. I had depression before I had this baby. I had depression. I think that I had depression way back when I started drinking and doing drugs and all of that. I think, I had the depression way back even then. When I was 20, I was actually diagnosed with depression. They put me on medication, Prozac. I had been in the hospital, and basically they said, if you don't want to go to the hospital again, you take this medication, you won't go back to the hospital. So I took the medication, and I didn't end up back in the hospital. One thing that no one told me was that because I had depression, I was predisposed to have postpartum depression after having this baby. No one told me about that. I had never heard of that before. I guess I had heard that Brooke Shields had postpartum depression severely, but for some reason I didn't think that was going to be a problem for me because I was on medication and the medication always worked, So when I had this baby and I had depression and I took the medicine and the medicine wasn't working, I didn't know what to do. I went to the doctors once a month to once every 3 months for 3 years and 2 months while I was on medication, where they were switching me from this medication to that medication to this one and that one and that one and that one and that one. And so it wasn't that I wasn't trying to get out of this depression, but it's like no matter what they did, nothing was bringing me out of this depression. Finally, my doctor, praise God, my doctor never gave up on me. And I thanked her. When I finally pulled out, I said, thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for not giving up on me. And she said, thank you for being one of my favorite patients. But I went through this severe depression for 3 years and 2 months. And finally, they got the medication right. I pulled through, and it was literally like a light switch. Like, I remember the day that I pulled out of it. I was driving in the car, and I was listening to Z88.3, which is Christian music. I pulled into a parking spot because I was so moved, I guess, by where I had been and where I had come. I didn't realize how depressed I was until I pulled out of it. I went and had communion every week, and every week I would pray, God, thank you for getting me through this week. Please, God, for my daughter's sake, get me through another week. I prayed that prayer every week for 3 years and 2 months. And I didn't even realize that I was as hopeless as I was until I finally became hopeful again. And I remember sitting in the car and that weight, those chains lifting from me, and just saying, wow, God, wow, thank you, praise God, praise God. And I called a friend. That was the first time I ever heard of a testimony, because I called a girlfriend, and she said, oh, honey, I'm so excited for you. You have a testimony now. And I said, a testimony? What's that? What's a testimony? And she said, I said, oh, you mean it's like my story? Because I go to 12-step program, and there it's your story. And she's like, yes, now you have a story. God pulled you through this. And I said, oh my gosh, what a difference it is. I remember that day because I remember how long had I been in that depression for 3 years and 2 months, So it hasn't been a whole long time since I've had that light switch come on. But since then, I'm back in school. I'm back on track. It's only been about, I want to say, 7 or 8 months that I've been out of that depression, and I'm back in school. God told me to apply for this scholarship. I got the scholarship to finish my bachelor's. I just found out last week that they're going to help me finish my bachelor's and now possibly even cover me for law school. So now I'm working on going back to school, getting my bachelor's. This is something that I had put off back in 2007. I put off getting my bachelor's, stopped following that goal of going to law school, becoming a judge, all that. I put it all on the back burner. God told me, no, you get right back on track again, I'm going to make a way for you. I'm still there, I'm still there, and you're still supposed to do this. And I haven't given up on you yet. You're still supposed to do this. And so every time I think that I'm supposed to be doing something else, or there's a hurdle in front of me, God gets me over the hurdle each time, like when I met that woman a couple days ago who's completely blind, and the same people that I'm trying to get to pay for my law school paid for her graduate degree, and she sat down and talked. God put her in my life. She sat and talked to me for 3 hours yesterday and said, step by step, this is what I did. This is what you need. This is how you do it. This is who you talk to. Here's some phone numbers. Here's what you do. Here's what you say. Here's what you write. She told me, and every time it was kind of like her, like she'd stop every now and then and say, you understand that, right? You understand what I'm saying, right? And she'd be like, let me tell you again. This is what you do. This is what you say. This is who you talk to. For 3 hours. 3 hours I just sat. She was like this gold mine that God put right in front of me. And I just was digging at this gold mine, getting little nuggets of gold, getting big nuggets of gold,
That's funny, too, because you shared with us before the program how you didn't want to sit at that table.
Yeah, you didn't.
Yeah, just share real briefly about that.
Oh, it was funny because what happened is there's I don't know how to be a mom. I'm new at this, this whole being a mom thing. So I go to this group. It's called MOPS, Moms of Preschoolers, and it's a Christian-based program. I highly recommend it for anybody that's a new mother. I decided to connect in. You get connected with other moms of preschoolers, and they all, you share stories with each other. You learn like what works for you, you find someone that's been there before you. They have mentors there. It's all Christian based. So I decided that I wanted to go to the Moms MOPS group. I wanted to sit at a table with a whole bunch of other moms. God put this woman in front of me. She was checking her kid in, and I didn't think she was a MOPS mom because she did not fit the stereotype of a 25 to 30-year-old soccer mom. So God told me to talk to her. I thought, this woman has nothing to talk to me about. We have nothing in common because she's not a MOPS mom, and I'm here for MOPS, and I'm here to meet other mothers because God told me to switch. That was the other thing. I used to go to MOPS at Real Life, and God told me to go to MOPS at First United Methodist Church on Mondays. I was hemming and hawing. I didn't want to switch MOPS groups, so I switched groups. I knew God was putting someone there for me. I was expectant of it, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does.
So when I showed up, I'm like expecting to meet whoever God's trying to put in my life. And every time this same woman is there, I keep thinking she's not the one that I'm supposed to talk to because she's not the 25 to 30-year-old MOPS mom she wasn't what I was expecting at all. When I show up, they're like, okay, do you know anybody here? Is anyone familiar to you? And I said, oh yeah, I recognize her over there. I want to sit at her table. And they're like, oh, her table is full. You can't sit at her table. You can sit at the silver table. And I'm like, the silver table? Yeah, you can sit at the silver table. There's plenty of seats there. And I'm thinking, I don't want it there to be plenty of seats. I want there to be a seat filled because I'm supposed to meet these other moms and I'm supposed to meet someone. There's not supposed to be empty seats at the table that I'm supposed to sit at. That's what I'm thinking. I go sit at the silver table, and lo and behold, It's the same woman that was checking her kid in when I was checking my kid in, the only other mother that was there checking her kid in when I was checking my kid in. And it's that woman who's 40-something like me, not 20 or 30-something like all the other MOPS moms.
And she's the one that God told you to talk to.
She's the one that God told me to talk to. She's the one that it turned out God told me to talk to her, and before we left, she's the only person I exchanged phone numbers with. We exchanged phone numbers. We got back to our own homes. We connected on Facebook, and she said, why don't you come over for a play date? Or no, she didn't even say, why don't you come over for a play date? She said, why don't we get together for a play date? And so I said, okay, where do you want to meet? And we were supposed to meet up at this one place, and then that didn't happen. So then she said, why don't we meet at my place? And I'm like, okay, we'll go to your place. So we met up at her place. I didn't realize that she's legally blind. We met at her place because she can't drive because she's legally blind. And here she's got a master's degree in social work, and the same people that I'm trying to get to pay for my law school paid for her master's degree in social work. And so that led us to sitting there yesterday for 3 hours, and me picking her brain and picking that gold mine and getting those pieces of gold nuggets to figure out how to pay for my law school.
Isn't that funny, though, when God puts things together? It doesn't always come in the package or the wrapper that we are kind of predispositioned to believe it will. You know, I mean, she, like you said, she wasn't the average stereotype of a MOPS mom. And, you know, she was like... Well,
she was the last person, she thought.
Yeah, last person, and what would this lady have to offer me?
That's what I kept saying. What does she have to offer me? Come on, God. I don't have time. I don't have time for this or that because I'm here on this mission you put me on. I don't have time to converse with this woman because I'm here for that mission you put me on. And yet she was the one I was on the mission to speak with, and yet I had no idea.
Kind of reminds me of the woman at the well, and he says to her, the person you speak of, I am he. You know? Oh, that gives me chills, man. You got such a fascinating story, Trish. I hate to interrupting you. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Continue on.
That's okay.
You're blessing me.
Have you heard that song by Mercy Me called You Are I Am?
Oh, yes.
That was the song that I heard when I was in the car, when I had the postpartum depression and the light switch came on. It was that song. The lyrics are, I've been the one to shake in fear. I wonder if you're even here. I've been the one to doubt your love. I told myself you're not enough. I've been the one to try and say, I'll overcome with all my strength. I've been the one to fall apart and start to question who you are. And I had doubted that God existed and that if he did, that I wasn't worthy of his time. I thought I could pull myself out of the postpartum depression on my own strength alone. And so when I heard that song, I was weeping and I was falling apart. As I was falling apart, I questioned if there was a God, why would I be in so much pain and have so much anguish? And the song goes, I've been the one held down in chains beneath the weight of my own shame. I've been the one to believe that where you are, I cannot reach. And I felt like where I was in this pit of hell, in my depression, that God couldn't reach me even if I wanted him to, and that I definitely felt literally weighed down by the chains. And now that I live in the Spirit, with the Spirit inside, and now that I've pulled through the depression, I live with the Spirit inside of me. And I wept in my car, and I couldn't drive when I heard that song, and I realized how depressed I had been, and for so long, for 3 years and 2 months. I'm so glad to be through all of that. I still am scared sometimes of it coming back. What if all of a sudden it comes back? What if, you know, the depression comes back. Like, what if I wake up tomorrow and I have that depression back? But God always tells me, you know, I'm faithful. I'm faithful. I'll be there for you.
Well, I think the devil would always like to put that bug in your ear,
words,
you know.
Yeah. Anything comes negative, it's coming from Satan.
Yeah, absolutely. Just flick him off your shoulder. That's what we do. Sometimes you got to actually go through the motion of doing it, but that's what we do, you know, because he'll feed you that garbage, that condemnation, any crack or open window of opportunity that he has to bring up your past or remind you of something in your past, he will.
Yeah, that's one thing that I'm learning is to know the difference. This sounds crazy, but to know the difference of the voices that you hear in your head, which one's of the enemy and which one's of God, which one's light and truth. That's still like something that I'm distinguishing.
But most likely, as I said, if it's a negative and it's not anything to do with positive or Bible-based or anything like that, then it's Satan.
But sometimes you don't realize that it's negative. You don't even realize it when you're hearing it.
I think, though, at times you get a check in your spirit.
Yeah.
Maybe not right away. At some point, you know, you get a check to go, I don't know. And if you have to question it,
if you have to
10 out of 10 times,
it's usually
turn
the enemy.
Opposite way and run.
Yeah, turn and run.
Yeah, give him a little flick.
Well, thank you for your testimony, Trish.
Oh, man, what a great testimony. And what an awesome song.
Thank you. I love that
way
song.
To wrap that up.
Yeah, I still hear that song. I still hear that song playing.
Can I ask you, though, through the 3-year depression, how did that affect your things at home? I mean, like...
marriage.
Wow.
Things like that. I mean,
you had to go there, didn't you?
I had to go there. That's what we do. That's how we roll here on God's
That's how we roll here.
And you know, Trish, it's fine. If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine.
No, it was hard. We ended up going to marriage counseling. It was very hard on my marriage. Very hard on my marriage.
I just felt like there was somebody out there that probably was asking.
But as it was hard on your marriage then, how is your marriage now?
Now, my husband's very supportive. We went through marriage counseling, and we went through pastoral counseling through the church, and, you know, basically we're both two people that want to be married, and we're both two people that don't believe in divorce. And so our marriage is strengthened from that experience.
That's what I was looking for.
Yep, that's the answer we were looking for. That's fantastic.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Session 23, Mikey.
Is done.
Yep. What a great one it was.
And we want to hear from you.
We do. Because if Trish's testimony touched you in any way, shape, or form, please get in touch with us at godstoriesradio@gmail. Look us up on Twitter, God Stories Radio.
And we're still looking for testimonies as well.
Looking for testimonies. If you are not comfortable on a microphone, or if you want to call in on Skype, we can do that. If you just want to send a written testimony in to us and we'll read it, you can send that to God Stories Radio, 1970 South Highway 27, Clearmont, Florida, 34711, or godstoriesradio@gmail. You can attach it and send it.
Don't forget Claremont, Clermont, because people like to misspell that.
Trish, thank you very much. Clermont, not Claremont, because that's in California.
All
well,
right.
Trish, thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for your testimony.
And we're really hoping to have her legally blind friend on the show here shortly.
Yeah, I hope she'll say yes.
Okay, sure.
Maybe
she is a spirit-filled woman. She is awesome.
Okay.
That would be great, and it would kind of solidify your portion of your testimony as well, and I just can't wait to hear from her. So. Okay. Well, that wraps it up for Session 23. I'm Fritz.
I'm Mike.
God bless.
God bless.
You're tuned into the God Stories Radio Podcast. www.godstoriesradio.com.